fragrances, I used to think that if I bought one, I don't know, baby powder fragrance from one company and a baby powder fragrance from a different company, if the SDS sheets looked about the same, I was just like, oh, that's the same kind of thing. It is not. There's no way that it can be, because the way that fragrances are formulated are so complex. The people at the end that are in the labs that are beyond the chemists, and that they have like degrees in fine formulation fragrances, and it's a very weird science. And there's a lot of different chemicals. So I don't think I've got a fragrance here to give an example. I've got a weird spray bottle. So when you first open your fragrance and you have a sniff out of the bottle and you think, oh, that smells nice, or that smells horrible, all you're smelling is some of the chemicals. When they get to room temperature, they evaporate. So when you open the lid, that from say the liquid's here and as space is there, it's called headspace. So you take the lid off and you smell it, and you're just smelling the headspace. So the chemical is all underneath that. And different fragrances react very differently in different products. Our fragrances are a little bit more on the expensive side, because the way that I've kind of understood it is that a fragrance is like, I'm going to compare it to a cake. So if you're making like a really rich fruit cake, it's got loads of different ingredients: your sugar, your butter, your flour, your fruit, and all that sort of stuff. And it's a very rich kind of formulation. But when you're cooking it, it might really nice in the house. And when it's sat on the side a week later, it'll smell really nice. And it's not gone off. It's not gone moldy because of the alcohol that's in there. You have it a week later, it tastes really nice. Have it a week later, with that bit of slice of Christmas cake, but with some custard, it tastes different. And fragrances are the same. So the more complex you can make them, generally, the better they are in one aspect or another. If you've got a really cheap fragrance, it's like making that Christmas cake, but you've only got flour, eggs, and water. You've got the ingredients for Yorkshire puddings that aren't going to smell like that. They're not going to taste nice with custard. They're not going to be right in a week or two. And that's how I kind of expect it. But what happens with that? The more chemicals you add in, generally they're declarable allergens. So people are generally put off a fragrance because, oh, there's loads of allergens to go on the label, but it means there's better chemicals in there that are going to make it a finer, better quality. So it could be the shelf life of it is better. One chemical makes the shelf life better. Another one makes it so that the smell fills the room. Another one makes it so that it, I don't know, transfers to the skin easily. So if you've got a fragrance with barely any formulation, it's a dead basic, boring fragrance. When I go to a fragrance house, so say I've got an aftershave fragrance that another company has got as well, they're going to be totally different, because when they're manufactured, they're made by us specifying like a price point, a price bracket of how we want them to be. And what they'll do is say I said, or I want that to be £10 a kilo, which is very, 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 very cheap. All they do is this fine fragrance compound that they've made, they'll put that as 10% in the barrel, and the other 90% they'll fill with some random filling mixing. If I say, right, I want it about £90 a kilo, I'm going to get 90% of that with 10% of this filling stuff. So there's so many like different dilute versions. And actually, one of our biggest mistakes ever was when I first got them fragrances, my very first 10 fragrances that I set the price point to the fragrance manufacturer way too high. Way, way, way higher than what any of my competitors was, because I knew no different. So our number one fragrances are our worst margin product. We sell loads of them, but the profit margin on them is awful for us, which is why very, very, very rarely you see them on offer, because they are a really expensive, decent quality of fragrance. And when I did the second lot, I hadn't realized that by then. So the second lot were a really high price point. So when I see competitors selling fragrances on an offer that's cheaper than what I bought them in, it makes me think, what kind of quality are them fragrances? Like, how can they perform? What are they like in products later on? Because they're clearly buying a much cheaper item, and it's not that they're getting them from somewhere that's a bit cheaper, because fragrance wise, you're restricted because it's such a specialist science. Going back and forth from different fragrances is so annoying. So I've got 6 fragrances on my desk at the moment because I'm looking for one specific scent. So I've got 6 there, and those 6 are a replacement for the last 6 they sent, but they're all the same. But when I've tested those 6, my original 6, one was a favourite, and it was actually I was wanted to make something for a wax melt. It was a bit of a project I was working on, and the hot throw of it is so strong it makes you feel sick. And I've got a massive lounge, and within minutes it is so strong, but it's the closest match. But cold throw, when you smell it in the wax, nothing, like as if there's nothing in it. So weird. So I'm saying, so all these different ones are them like whatever base note that is that's kicking out such a like strong scent. They're trying to reduce that and trying to put some of the weaker ones that are probably more present in a room temperature to make it so it's got a cold throw. And so that's 12 of the same fragrance. I'm not happy with any of them. But when you try one and you get it and you test it, say it takes you a week, you go back to the company and say, no, I'm not really happy with that. You wait 2 or 3 weeks for them to send the replacement. Then you have to wait another week or so. So then I've got 12 samples. It probably took me nearly a year for one fragrance. And we don't just ring a company and say, right, we want cherry, lime, blueberry. Yeah, send us what you've got, which is why we're a lot slower. And I think that's probably a bit of a business mistake, maybe, that we're a lot slower at getting new things out because we like to think of the ifs, buts, maybes. What if this happened? What if it was packed like that? But also, my hand on heart, genuinely don't believe that I couldn't pass that many things as a decent enough quality because we put them in assessment. So I have to say I've got a new fragrance. I need to then test it of in body butter, in a wax melt because I have wax customers, in bath bombs, in shower gels, in hair masks, in jellies, in everything. And that all takes time. And it doesn't matter how big your team is, it takes time. And then once you've made that product, right, what happens to it in a week? What's it like after a month? What's it like after 6 months? If it's no good at all by 3 months, straight back to the beginning again. I feel like we're quite in a good position, us strong in our castle with decent quality items, but with a smaller range maybe. But then there's other people that have got wider ranges that do turn around faster and things. But maybe they're just doing wax and want loads of different fragrances to trial in and stuff like that, and are turning over their fragrances and stuff. That there is like a lid for every pot, and some customers will suit that type of business. But generally, our customers, once they find us, they don't tend to go very far. So usually, the amount of people that say, I'm so loyal to you, I'll only buy from you, I really like your products, your help's amazing, the group's really good, everyone's really friendly. And that's like that little community that we've kind of built.